Well, recently there seems to be some intervention on the part of the Assembly, but we'll get to that in a moment. Well, this time we're joined by Mr. Benjamin Okewu, who is a National President, Air Transport Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, my brother. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, how does this bother the union? Does it directly affect them?
Yeah, definitely. It is important that we state it clearly, say the truth as it is. Lagos Airport and Abuja Airport accounts for over 90% of FAAN revenue generation. And when you have a situation where that revenue generated from those two airports are dwindling, definitely it will affect the welfare of workers, because they will not be able to get their salaries as at when due, and will not be able to improve upon their welfare. So definitely it has a direct effect on the workers, and that is why the workers took up the fight since 2007, to be specific.
The workers took up the fight?
Yes, since 2007.
What have they been doing?
Yeah, we've gone several places, and I think this is the opportunity for us to state the truth as it is on this matter. It's important I let the world know that we have been to the National Assembly. There was a Senate resolution passed in 2010 that Maevis contract should be terminated immediately, as based on the facts that were presented before them, and after a critical analysis by both FAAN and Maevis. Maevis was invited also, and that they were not adding anything to the system, and by virtue of that, they have no business being in FAAN for any minute. The resolution is there. It was passed by the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Until this very moment, we still haven't even had any kind of concrete reason or genuine reason whatsoever why you don't want Maevis there. Is either you're talking about not bringing anything to the table, and just after the eviction of Maevis, we saw all that happened in the airports. Almost everything collapsed, and people had to miss their flights, loss of time, and now you still say they didn't bring anything to the table?
I didn't think there were situations where people missed their flight. However, the airport operation management system is something that is not new.
But what exactly is the problem with your union and Maevis? Because
we don't have any issues with Maevis. We have issues with the federal government and the agent of the federal government, which is Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. You will recall that hitherto FAAN was doing this collection manually, as it is done all over the world. Government decided, as at the time even Maevis came on board.
Sorry, FAAN, manually all over the world?
I said, as it is all over the world, Federal Government of Nigeria decided that they wanted to bring in the airport operation management system.
Okay.
Therefore, FAAN had a plan. They wanted to do it together with NACO as at that time, because NACO was still part of FAAN when we were talking about this airport operation management system. Incidentally, that did not work, because perhaps on the sharing formula of the ownership. And thereafter, we learned that Maevis was coming on board to provide the system. It's a standard system that operates all over the world. And all over the world where it operates, you do not collect commission for that using that system. You do not collect enhancement. The cost of this thing is borne by the passengers. All over the world, the statistics shows that it's either $1.50, $1.80, as the case may be, for the queue system, which assists in the check-in system for international travelers. So you only collect that charge, which is borne by the passengers. But when it was being implemented in Nigeria, we had a different scenario altogether.
Then who do you blame?
And that is why I say we don't have any issues with Maevis. Let it be on record that before even the system started, we wrote several petitions. The then Minister of Aviation is still alive today. Hassan Hayat is still alive today. We wrote to him and we told him some of these loopholes. We also told him,
after it had been signed, right?
Yes, after it had been signed. Remember, after signing, it took some while before it got implemented.
Yeah, but were you privy to the documents?
We're not privy to the documents.
It was signed.
We're not privy to documents, but some of our members were. At the level of the union, we're not privy to the document before it got signed. But some of our members were. And when some of these members raised objections, some of these clauses, they were transferred out of FAAN, Lagos. A lot of them were sent away. It's a record. We had to fight for 2 years for them to be brought back.
So what
They
you
were sent out as punishment.
What you were saying in essence was that before, Maevis came in to help FAAN increase revenue generation and also standardize its operations.
That's the thinking.
That's what Maevis.
That's what should be standard.
Okay, so you also said that Lagos and Abuja are the highest earning airport.
Yes.
And you also said that between the period 2007 and now,
yes,
that revenue has been dwindling.
Yes. Now, between the time Maevis came on
board, how is that possible? Because Maevis will only get its own money. If the more money they make, the more commission they get. I mean, that's how they make their own money.
Let's get this clarification straight. Between the time Maevis came on board to operate in FAAN and now, Maevis has collected about 3.8 billion naira as 2% commission and 35% enhancement.
How much did you say again?
3.8 billion naira.
Okay.
You can imagine what that volume of money can do.
After they invested 7 billion naira.
Don't go there. Don't
you still have to go there because
don't go there because
you don't the fear. A moment here, Mr. Okewu. The fear of Nigerians is that you ask people to come invest in Nigeria, and they say if people have come to invest and they have sunk in a little, almost less than 10 billion naira, and they haven't even done any kind of recoup in the whole of that kind of investment, and you say they shouldn't go there in the first place, it then means that it's all about the money. You haven't even waited for them to get close to the end of the contract.
I am pained in my heart, because if somebody is saying he spent about 10 billion naira, I expected you to ask him to produce an evidence to show that. The evidence that we have, which is exactly what we are presenting everywhere to the Senate, as it is stated in the agreement. The agreement that was signed between Maevis and FAAN as an agent of government was that those equipment was going to be deployed in 4 airports: Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and Port Harcourt, at the cost of 3.959 billion naira. That is the agreement. If there had been any alteration, if there had been any counter agreement, if there had been any agreement to increase this cost, let them produce it. Now, you have not deployed these equipments in Kano and Port Harcourt. What we have in Abuja is even a partial deployment.
How does that affect the union?
It affects the union because the revenue that should go to the welfare of workers is going to a single individual.
But ordinarily, FAAN should stand up and correct any anomaly that goes on there, right?
FAAN is correcting it. And that is why
they are the ones who signed that agreement.
Yes.
And so if the union, if the Senate is saying, well, the agreement should be terminated, there are certainly terms of reference. You cannot sign an agreement tomorrow and the next day somebody says...
I think the history is very important. The history is very important. People cannot hide under the auspices of the law to perpetuate fraud. It's very important.
Law.
Yes. That is the technicalities of law to perpetuate fraud.
No, but how do they hide under that?
Now, let's state it as it is. Maevis took FAAN to court. Why? Because FAAN was insisting, based on the input and agitations from the union, that there is a need for this contract. First and foremost, it was review. The unions were asking for review based on the fact that we knew that he had come with a good idea. But we knew, because we had traveled wide and wide, we also know that this is standard operations that operates all over the world. And why are we copying the same thing but doing the right thing, the wrong thing?
Okay, let me pop.
And it was that basic that made us brought out the faults in the agreements.
Okay, the faults in the agreement. It means you've seen the ones you've seen.
Yes.
What are the clauses for instance, if you need to terminate that agreement, what do they have to do or go?
You give notice of termination.
And all that.
All that has been done. All that has been done. The contract has been terminated.
There will be no...
It was only enforced last week.
Excuse me. There will be no refund. I mean, if you're terminating the contract before a certain time, when I'm supposed to have recouped my investment, shouldn't I be entitled to some compensation?
I don't think the federal government is saying that they're not going to refund anything if it's due for anything.
So why did they go to court?
Who went to court? Yeah, you should find out who went to court.
No, if Maevis goes to court and saying, listen, you're not abiding with the terms of reference of the contract, you should go to court and prove yourself, because there's a contempt case now. And that should not be the case.
I don't think that is exactly what happened. There was a meeting with Maevis as an organization and the Federal Ministry of Aviation under the then leadership of Njeze. Njeze was the then Minister of Aviation. There was a meeting based on the presentation of the union and then the FAAN management on the issues that were against the contract itself. What I mean by that is that areas where there were defaults in the contract agreement. And that meeting held, and the minister gave a directive that whether you like it or not, this contract will have to be reviewed.
Whether they like it or not.
Yes. And then the next day, after that meeting, Maevis got to court and said, well, you cannot review that contract. And why are they talking about review? The Airport Authority of Nigeria for the past 14 years, before in 2001, 14 years, now 15 years, all the tariff they were collecting have been stagnant for that as long as 13 to 14 years.
Okay.
But the services has also, the cost of maintaining those airports and providing services have increased. So there have been agitation
ordinarily,
for an increase.
Ordinarily, what do you expect Maevis to have done? Going to court to challenge, for instance, going to court to challenge the call for review of that particular contract. So don't you think your union, if you are aggrieved or if FAAN is aggrieved, should also proceed to court?
Well, there are two ways to it. We don't have any dealings with Maevis. I've said that
Which
before.
is the other way apart from the courts?
We don't have any issues with Maevis. We have issues with the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria and the federal government. And that is why as a union, we went through all the processes. We're in the House of Rep, we're in Senate, and we took on the executive arm of government. The federal government constituted a 3-man committee with 3 ministers.
Apart from the courts to seek redress,
yes.
Which is the other way you can do all of that? You said there are 2 ways.
Well, basically for us as a union, there is a movement for the survival of FAAN. I told you from where we are coming from. Remember that Nigeria Airways started like this. And it's also important that I say this. The same Maevis also was in Nigeria Airways under another platform. And it was the workers that chased him out. And why did we chase him out? Because he came with the same idea of doing this kind of automation for Nigeria Airways. Where
are you invariably saying that it was your union members who went there to beat up members of staff of Maevis?
We don't do that.
But you read it in the papers. They were beaten up.
If there's any union member that did that, I challenge anybody
equipments were destroyed.
If we indulge in that,
but you just said that. But you just said there are other ways by chasing them out. You don't chase people out by word of mouth. You chase
the destiny of the aviation workers is in their hands. We are still struggling to get the payment for Nigeria Airways workers as we speak.
Mr. Okewu, did your members beat up members of staff?
We don't do involve in that. Why would we have to do that? I have just told you that we don't have any issues with Maevis.
But you read it in the papers that they were beaten up and they were harassed.
They should mention any of my members who harassed them. They should mention any of my union ESCO who beat them up. So basically, we don't have any issues with Maevis. We have issues with Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria.
What we find interesting, there seems to be a set pattern that when the federal government is about to go into even state governments about to go into partnership with one of their agencies, with maybe a concessioning agreement, a public-private partnership, you always find the unions kicking against it.
Yes.
Is it always with good reason? Because sometimes, it's like I said, there is this fear that they are going to lose their own jobs. And sometimes most of the protest is born out of that. And from what we have heard, Maevis was able to assure that the union members are not going to lose their jobs and that nobody has lost their job
all over the
because
world,
they came in 2007.
Where the airport operation management system is implemented, is installed and implemented, no worker loses a job.
Okay.
So your union did not have that fear?
They are only saying that the standards should have been maintained. And what is the standard? Why do you bring commission? Why collect for checking system? Why collect enhancement? Why use 2007 as a base year? Where you know that FAAN ordinarily shouldn't have been stagnant.
I mean, those are the questions.
Those are the clauses in the agreement.
Those are the questions that should have been posed to FAAN. That's why FAAN should have known better.
Let me say this. Let me see. All those that signed that agreement on behalf of FAAN are no more in the system.
Agreed.
And by implication, what that means is that if you call them here today, they were forced in a way or the other to do what they did.
Yeah, but they
But
were
that's not the issue now.
representing FAAN.
I don't work for FAAN.
Yeah, they were. So
Yes.
and from the point of law, it might not be tenable.
I agree. Totally. Government is continuous.
Yeah.
Management is continuous. But the point we are making is, at the point we came in, when we were elected as union leaders, and this document was made available to us, we went through the documents. And for the fact that we are members of the International Transport Federation, we asked some of our affiliates to help us look at the documents. They sent us what obtains in other parts of the world. And we juxtaposed it to what we're doing here. And we found out that there were so many areas that that are not in the best interest of Nigerians and the aviation workers.
Okay.
And we raised those objections.
Well, since you say your objections are with FAAN,
Yes.
that means that can one assume that it bothers the union the way government is seen to be doing business?
Yeah, basically that's the truth.
Because you can't sign an agreement on one hand and then you say whether they like it or not, it must be reviewed, assuming it comes
If you
across
go
as
into any
though
agreement,
without the
there's
terms
no-
of reference.
I think there's no agreement that is sacrosanct.
Yeah, but it has to be based on the terms that they both agreed on. So it cannot be whether they like it
Let me
or
state
not.
it here. I didn't come with letters. The Federal Ministry of Aviation, to be fair to them, have set up 2 committees where the union was made a member. I was opportune, privileged to be representing the union to review these concession agreements. Every of them refused.
Are you worried about the security risk this portends for us as a nation if Maevis, an indigenous company, has been asked to leave and you're bringing in a foreign company to come man the security of your airport?
I think we are getting the whole thing wrong. CITA that is there is not manning the security of our airport. Maevis has never been manning the security of our airports. I wish I had come with the agreement. Which nation in the whole world will give his security, the security of his airport, to a single individual? Where on earth is it done? If that's the impression you are getting, it is wrong. If that's what Maevis says is doing, then government has to ask him questions.
Okay, so what
Maevis,
was...
I think I need to make this very clear.
Okay, quick, because
We
we're
were just brought in to provide a system, automated system, that will help FAAN capture all their revenues accurately. And then they introduce a clause that you should help them collect, which is not done all over the world. They introduce a clause that you should collect 2% commission, which is not done over the world. They introduce another clause to say that you collect 35% enhancement, as if the organization was supposed to be dead and stagnant. Those are areas, and we brought them out.
Well, let me quickly ask you a question. There's the issue of transparency here. There's the issue of transparency here. You know, FAAN says that Maevis is collecting more than they're actually saying that they're collecting. But Maevis has retorted saying that it is FAAN officials who actually issue the receipts at the end of the day, so they will be able to tell the truth if they are. Can you exactly say for us, or say to us that, which one of them is actually telling the truth?
I think let's not play polemics with this. The platform account is not part of the agreement. I've never seen concessions were done. Nigeria.
But is it transparent? That's what we want to know.
It is not transparent.
Is it transparent?
It is not transparent.
Can your union members actually say how much accrues to Maevis?
We can't say
and
that.
if the federal government is getting a fair share out of it?
I am telling you that we don't have any evidence to say that. Why? Because the MD and 1 or 2 other persons are only having access to see what comes into that platform account.
All right.
Whatever is from Maevis is deducted at source. I have never seen any agreement in this country, Nigeria, except that of between Maevis and FAAN, where you collect money on behalf of the federal government and you pay it into a special account before you now transfer it to the federal government account.
Okay, so since we're out of time, could you say respond to this as quick as you can? What was responsible for the exit of those who signed this agreement, who you say are no longer in FAAN?
Yeah, because the position they posited at that time against the agreement was against the interest of who was the managing director at that time, representing another interest as against Maevis.
Interesting.
I think I have to state this. Sorry, I have to say that I'm not threatening, but we have gone beyond where we have to do what is important. The aviation workers are suffering. I just told you about how many people die every day as a result of the non-payment of the Nigeria Airways workers. We had a Congress last week, and the mandate of the people is that if the government allows any manipulation and the MD of FAAN is jailed for any contempt or whatsoever, the aviation workers, 5,000 workers of FAAN, 4,000 pensioners are ready to go to jail with the MD.
Well,
this is because this action has to some extent depicted that the transformation agenda of Goodluck Jonathan, the president of Nigeria, is beginning to benefit the people.
Well, the thing about all of this matter is that the law is a law. Everybody must be seen to comply with the law.
Sure.
The law is no respecter of persons.
Yes.
If anyone falls short of the law, they have to face the law.
But people cannot hide under the technicalities of the law to continue to perpetrate fraud.
If it's part of the law, it is legal and not illegal. If it's outside the purview of the law,
you cannot legalize an illegality.
There you go. So if it's an illegality, you're not hiding under the law.
The contract on its own is illegal.
Then you go to court.
Go to court. That's the procedure.
It's left for government and them to do that. But for us as a union, we have done what we have to do. We are a pressure group and we are mobilized. Everybody has been asked to take their destinies in their hands.
But you have no problem with Maevis, but your challenge is with FAAN.
And that's why FAAN has done the right thing now. We have a right, we have a local standard to protect that which they have done.
But they must obey the law.
That is left for them and the government. And that is the federal government. If the federal government has negated the law, that's on their own. But for us, I do not see where they have negated the law.
Well, it's
the contract was terminated as far back as March last year.
It's only the courts that can actually determine that, not individuals, not even lawyers, but the courts.